One of the big problems with the internet is the fact that so much information is available so easy. Now, let me explain why this is a problem. First off, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. We teach you how to use critical thinking and optimization techniques to achieve more and get better results, to build your influence and strength. Here's the thing. What are you influencing? On the internet, it's so easy to create content and just get it out there and to do videos and other things. And you may have noticed this, that large events you might be paying money for, have problems with their microphones. They have great slideshows and great presentations, but you can't hear the sound right, or the room isn't right, or the opportunity to network isn't there because everybody's looking at their devices in between each session. What we have today is a incorrect prioritization. The internet is so easy to use, so I'm going to use it, and then I'm going to get results. Well, are you getting small results, or are you getting big results? Could you get the same results in a different way? Or do you have to have the latest app, the latest phone, the latest tool, the latest technology? Now, the internet is really good if you're selling something because we've shortened the demand cycle so tight that people will just buy. It's very spontaneous. You can buy anything in the world from the internet in the comfort of your own home. You don't even have to go outside anymore. But the problem is that narrow portal to which you see the world becomes the narrow portal to which you understand the world. Without the broad experiences, without reading and understanding what you're looking at, the implementation will be off. So the very best presentation that nobody can hear has little or no value. The 1,000 sales that you might make on a Facebook promotion don't mean anything if you only net a couple $100. That next level career doesn't matter if the promotion you do to find it is on a platform that doesn't have decision makers. See, there are so many aspects of today that's about instant gratification. It's about immediately getting some kind of result to the point we get overstimulated and we don't look at the quality of the result. When surveyed, most employees say they like to spend more time with their family, but when they're given additional time, they tend to use it working. What does that mean? Does it mean they don't really want to spend time with their family, and that's the response they give because they believe that's what's expected of them? Or is it a behavioral conditioned response to work? Now, that's very beneficial to an employer. Let's talk about 5-hour work days, but then make people work 80 hours a week. Let's talk about the 5-hour work days and then turn everybody part-time so we can pay them less. The perspective that I'm trying to share with you as a listener of Inside Strategic Relations is that your first impression is most often a conditioned impression, not necessarily a reasoned impression. This is very important to understand. This is in a world of feelings versus facts and facts versus feelings. Those feelings you have are reinforced by the facts that you believe are most likely to be congruent with the thoughts that you have. That means you're constantly deluding yourself. That's why children tend to take on behavior characteristics of their parents. The first time a child has the behavioral characteristic of their parent and it serves their need, they tick mark that away in their brain. And then the next time they have that same problem, they often apply by default that first solution, which then reinforces the initial tick mark. Then eventually they become those things they think about. Now, why is that? Well, they become more like their parents over time because of the familiarization with their parents. Not because it's like genetic. It's because of an environmental conditioning. Now, if you put yourself in a situation where you have the greatest variety of environmental influences that are, 1, pre-screened, 2, well-reasoned, and 3, deliberately sought out to reach objectives, you will actually streamline the behaviors necessary so that default responses are more likely to be in your favor. So I studied martial arts for a long time. I actually was an assistant instructor for about 5 years. I've got a black belt in Shorin-ryu karate. And I, by reflex, do certain things that are defensive. So in the sense, if I was walking down the street and someone grabs my arm, I will actually move my wrist and make a, it's difficult to tell you on video, but I'll basically break out of that hold without thinking about it. And that's because after doing it thousands of times, teaching students, participating with students, and my own practice, it's just natural behavior. Just like a basketball player really isn't thinking about dribbling the ball. They're thinking about putting the ball in the hoop. And so that's what we want from the use of strategic relationships. We want you to be constantly cultivating valuable, mutually beneficial relationships so that when you need something, the social context is there, the value in the community is there, your credibility is there, you're seen as an expert in an area, and when that opportunity arises, you are immediately selected. So let's say you want to improve your career. Well, the majority of the people who advance in a corporation tend to be individuals who are well known. They are well known for moderate successes, so they don't do anything too dangerous and they don't do anything too conservative. They're known by the people who can give you a promotion, and they are very much politically oriented. So if you're more social in a corporate environment, you'll tend to move forward faster. Those people who also put in the long hours and don't ask many questions are also promoted as well. Now, we could go into the long social dynamic of why that is, but I'm not going to cover that here. I want to cover what happens when you're running your own business. People who get ahead running their own business very often take risks. That's different from a corporate environment. People who are running their own business succeed by having a level of expertise that is noticeable so that when the customer or client has a problem, they know who to turn to. And ultimately, a person in an entrepreneurship or a business of their own has a higher level of personal responsibility. There's nobody to blame anything on if something goes wrong. Now, if you've narrowed your scope of possible solutions to just what you can find on the internet, you are first training yourself to believe the answer is there, and second, eliminating many answers that might be available by working with a consultant or a mentor, by getting a book on the topic and reading it. I was reading a biography about this gentleman, and this was a while back, and every time he had a problem, he went out and bought 5 books on the topic. He quickly read through the books. Now he's skimming, he's looking for things, and he read through the books under the context of questions associated with the problem. Now, they didn't have the internet back then, but his premise is if someone took the time and effort to write a book, and if he took the time to look in the book with a purpose, he could really quickly narrow down whether the author knew what they were talking about and throw the book away, or find unique elements that will help him move towards a solution. Once he's narrowed down a couple books and he's gone through them, now he can think specifically on the problem at hand because he has taken all of the information available on that topic, filtered it down into summaries and approaches, and now can solve his problem easily. Now try that today in the internet. If you go out on the internet and you search for the 5, now first off, you're not going to get whole books. You go on the internet and you search out stuff and you're going to find 5 articles. Now, those articles are written as marketing pieces many times, so you're not going to get all the facts that you need, and you're still going to have more questions. See, I don't want questions, I want answers. So if I got questions, I want to go where I can get the best answers, and that very often means narrowing the focus down. Now, I'm fortunate to have a large library, and many of the questions I have, I can just go to my library. But I've given myself a shortcut, is I've collected all the lessons learned from the application of past experiences, so I'm not reliant on my memory. Now, the reason I did that is because I didn't get much sleep. I have ADHD and Asperger's, so I do have the tendency to get too hyper-focused on things. And by writing down the procedures, I was able to get back on track for the things I'm supposed to be doing. So I actually have manuals and procedurals on how to do those regular tasks that I'm being paid to do. That's how I can make a high income, but be somewhat incompetent. I know a lot of information, but I don't always apply it the way I should. The second point is I can shortcut decisions by seeing the 3 to 5 different choices I had the last time I faced the same problem and then go solve the problem. Now, let me wrap up some threads here. You might be asking, well, Justin, that sounds like a lot of time. How do I fit that in my busy schedule? One of the reasons you might be going to the internet to search for things is because it seems like it's fast. You know, you ask a question, the answer comes back. If you're going to sit down and develop 15 questions that are around the problem statement that you've written down, and now you're going to go do some research, you're going to have to go buy 5 books, you got to wait for them to come from Amazon, or you got to go to the bookstore, or you got to go to the library. God forbid you go to the library, all kinds of books there. And you sit down and then now write a short little narrative about the solutions that you found, and then you got to pick which solution. Well, that obviously will not work for every small problem you have. But you might want to ask the question, why do you have so many small problems? See, the people who achieve have big problems and solve big problems. See, a mentor of mine, Jim Strahl, used to talk about stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. Just because it's easy doesn't mean you should be doing it. You can go on the internet and sell a $25 ebook or write a book to be positioned as an expert, and that would be it. You might feel that you've done something, but ultimately just having a book doesn't mean anybody buys it. And you also need to have books on topics that are what people want to read to solve problems. And so there's really 2 sides of this coin, and understanding if you can narrow the scope of the focus onto things that are high value, so solve $1 million problems instead of $10 problems. Think about the solution and its utility value. Solve things worth solving. So right now, I got some problems. They're $1 million problems, but I'm not the one to solve them. And I make that decision. I set it aside. I move on. Now, it doesn't mean that 5 years down the line, I might not pick that folder up again and solve a problem or find a problem. And that's happened many times. I've solved small problems for clients in the past, and over time we've solved bigger and bigger problems. That's why I can give you success stories that are at $25 million level, at $32 million level, at $200 million level, because I used to do a lot of $5 and $10 until I realized that it took as much effort to have a very good solution for a $5 problem as it does for a $50,000 problem or a $500,000 problem or a $5 million problem. But let's look at this a little bit better. Because you are interacting with a large volume of information, you need a systematic approach in order to take the broad scope concepts, narrow them down into practical and actionable insights, and then taking action to measure results. Now, the internet makes it so easy, which is not really easy. It just feels like it's easy. But the internet makes it feel like you're doing something just by getting a search result. Now, Google's designed it that way so that they can get your searches, because ultimately the economy today is about monetizing your attention and monetizing the questions you ask. But ultimately, if you want to solve problems and you're focused on solving big problems, you also need a way to organize your information. Now, there's a reason that I've got binders from the late 80s and the 90s, and that was because of obsessive compulsive behavior, not necessarily because I was smart and I knew these things are going to be useful in the future. I just kind of figured out in elementary school that I could keep rewriting my book report on the Punic Wars because I had different teachers every time. And as long as I significantly improved the report and made it on topic, I could keep writing about the Punic Wars. Now, am I an expert in the Punic Wars today? Not really. I don't remember all that stuff. And I didn't remember I was rewriting the reports until I found a folder that had 4 or 5 versions of the same report with grades on them over a 6 to 8 year time period. Now, you can benefit from my dysfunction. And ultimately, it wasn't dysfunction because I was able to write that report. In fact, I even sold that report in high school by writing it for another student. I've written art essays and don't judge me for helping people do their homework, but I used to get paid in the 90s $20, $30 for an assignment to keep the football players on the field rather than academic ineligibility. But I digress. My larger point is you have to expand your horizon in your ability to get qualified information, but use a framework that narrows your focus to solve big problems. Write that down, folks. You could be chasing a lot of little tiny opportunities and having problems every day that don't need to be solved. You could be distracted with problems that don't need solutions. And if you frame, where's the profit in this, or what's the maximum value I'm seeking to obtain, you're going to be able to use your mind and in fact program it so that default behaviors tend to be more beneficial to you in the long run, without that cognitive bias of just doing what your parents did or just doing what everybody else in the industry does. Now, that's part of the complexity of strategic relationships. What is your relationship to the information that you're receiving, and the provider's relationship to that information, and how can those be aligned to benefit you for your written goals and objectives? I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. I know I covered a lot in 15 minutes. I know you might have more questions than answers at this point. That's why if you visit www.insidestrategicrelations.com, there'll be a way for you to ask questions. You can simply just contact the office and send us a letter, or you can go click the little link in the corner and ask a question. And by the way, while a lot of people do ask questions, I don't personally read all those questions. I have staff who sift and sort, gather historical information. This is part of my process. And then they provide me briefings where we do weekly and sometimes monthly question and answer sessions. I also use your questions to provide answers via this podcast. But all of that and more is at www.insidestrategicrelations.com. Ultimately, what I'm here to do for high-income professionals and entrepreneurs is help them create and keep profitable customers and transform business relationships into profits guaranteed. Thanks for listening.